Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I'm here with Ujwal Velagapudi. Did I get it right, man?
You got it right. Yeah.
All right,
Velagapudi.
cool.
Yeah.
Velagapudi. Man, I love your name. It's one of the most unique ones I've had, so that's cool. So let's just start off right off the bat. Tell us kind of who you are, what your background is, and what got you into the mergers and acquisitions field. So the ongoing joke is you were born and then you ended up on a show about mergers and acquisitions. How in the hell did you end up on my show, man?
No, I appreciate you having me on. And my story, I started back in Detroit. So grew up in the suburbs, went to school out there in the state of Michigan. And I had a day job working in supply chain, aerospace, and then automotive, working procurement. And then simultaneously, I was like, okay, what do old people do? What do adults do? It's real estate. And so that's the only thing that I had heard of. That's the only thing that I knew as far as what adults did with their money to invest. And I got out of the stock market. So I cashed everything that I had out of stocks for my internship days, took that cash and looked to buy some real estate. Started in the suburbs, then slowly diverted into the city of Detroit, proper city, some of the worst streets probably in the country, and bought my first investment. A lot of failed suburban properties, condos, and things like that. And then found my way to the city. And my very first investment, I negotiated that down to 20 grand cash for a 3-unit retail strip. Had like a barber shop in there, had a clothing store, and then the other units was vacant at the time. 3 units, all brick. I loved it. It was a beautiful building, very high trafficked area, and 20 grand cash. So that was my very first investment. And that started the snowball into my investment journey at a higher tier in like a more professional way after I started working full time. That snowballed into dozens of units. And by the way, I bought that first property on Craigslist. And so that really opened the door to quite a bit. My second property was off Craigslist. And so eventually that snowballed into dozens of units. And I was always on Craigslist, selling Air Force Ones, buying Air Force Ones, buying gym equipment, buying cars, whatever it was. So that's how I found those properties. And then I stumbled across the business section. And one day I was looking at a liquor store, pizza shop. And so that took me down the rabbit hole of, wait, I can buy a business that's a fraction of the cost of the real estate and it makes more cash flow, because the cap rates for real estate are very different than a multiple on a business. So especially back in the day. And so after probably over half a dozen failed deals, I eventually bought a sports bar in the city of Detroit right next to our NHL arena. And that was my very first acquisition. So that kind of started my snowball in where I'm at today, where I bought a total of 10 businesses and continuing to buy more. And I've sold a few of them, but always looking for the next opportunity.
It's interesting. We have a little bit of a similar background. I too worked in aerospace in a different way, designing systems and stuff for aerospace and government agencies through Lockheed Martin. And then I got into real estate. The funny thing was I got a master's degree in marketing, and one of my clients bought our marketing agency and took me in-house, and he had a real estate investment firm. We were doing residential and did that for years from 2007 to 2017. Lots of properties in the real estate residential side. So I stepped right over that, and I went and bought a company, a pest control company, and I did it all wrong. It was horrible. It was too small, it was too
Yeah.
risky. Ended up having to go get all the licenses myself. I thought I was gonna hang my licenses on the old, owner's shingle, and he was gonna
Mhm,
semi-retire and just keep his licenses up to date. Found out he wasn't compliant at all. We pretty much just bought his equipment and his in a list that was
mhm,
anyway. So that was a mistake. So I thought, "Oh, I learned most of this real estate through by hiring mentors." So I went out
mhm.
and started training. One of the reasons this podcast exists
Yeah.
was because of right, because I wanted to go
Mm,
out and learn more about the space. So, it's a little bit similar backgrounds, going from W-2 job to real estate
mhm,
to, wait a second, there's something out there that makes a lot more money than real estate. I love the idea of the bar. I actually considered that before I had children. I kinda see it now as, like, the lifestyle of it. If I had to be the operator, show up, I don't wanna be gone from 7 or 8 PM at night until 3 or 4 in the morning every day. So I didn't buy one eventually. So I seen the profitability of some of these clubs, like, some of these little clubs,
mhm.
do pretty good, but, I still like the idea, like, there's a lot of nightcap clubs, if you do it right, there's some good cash in there. Bars are probably the one of the food businesses that the profit margin's decent, right? What other type of businesses, besides the bars and stuff, what kinda give me the flavor of the variety of things that you've got your hands into?
Yeah, but in 6 different industries, so it's the one bar, gym, e-commerce business, software consulting, and a virtual assistant agency, and vending machines. So, bought in those 6 so far.
So cool. Let's talk about uh, the one that kinda jumped out with me was the virtual assistance agency. Do you still have that
Mhm.
one, or did you sell it?
I do. Yep, I still have that one.
That's really cool. I just talked to another gentleman who it's not live yet, but he has probably a competing one, and he sold a company that did in that virtual assistance place too. That said, there's a lot of competition in the space, but there's a lot of people who would need and do that. Does your company find them for them, or you manage it? What does that company do?
Yeah, so it's called Hi Byron,
Mhm,
Hibyron, and
mhm.
so this is something that I had purchased. It's about an 8-year-old company, and it's 100 it used to be 100% US-based assistance. So,
Oh,
they are administrative assistants, and our main differentiator is that we really focus on the tech stack that we are providing the service for. For example, is this assistant someone that can help you in Trello, in ClickUp, in Notion, in QuickBooks, in Salesforce, in HubSpot, Zoho, whatever it is, do they know that particular platform? And
okay.
that's the vehicle that they are assisting you in. Of course, the basic administrative work, the basic research, using Excel, using the basic tasks, email management, whatever it may be, running reports. That's all there as well, but it's primarily for the digital entrepreneur that is utilizing all of these services, all of these platforms, and our team can actually go out and assist you on those. At the same time, we're not someone that's like a high-end developer in those, but we can run with whatever it is that you're requesting.
That's cool. I've used a lot of stuff like that when I jump in to like a new platform like HubSpot or something like that. I've actually
Mhm,
used as a temporary thing, like help me set up this and help
mhm,
me get it running. And maybe it's a 2 or 3 month gig until I've like I don't want to deal with the learning curve on a lot of these things. I just want it working. Like here's what I want it to do.
mhm,
Go do it. So
mhm,
a lot of times it's good to bring somebody else in that does it. That's what they do. They know the system inside and out. And
mhm,
then, for me, we can do hourly occasionally when I need modifications or changes or something like that. You
right.
said when you bought it, it was 100% US based. Are you augmenting it now with, people from around the world or?
Yeah, so we're actually in the middle of that process right now. We've tested it out with a bunch of clients, and for me, I've always believed in global talent. I've got team members
Mhm.
all over the world, and so it's something that we have shifted the model over to. Yes, we're primarily still US based, but we have hundreds and hundreds of applications every single week from potential assistants around the world that want to come work for us, and we turn 100% of them down. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't until very, very recently that we said, you know what? there's all this talent out there that's knocking on our doors. They have the ability to utilize, or they have the expertise in all these softwares. They've got the experience, great communication, et cetera, et cetera. And why not find the best suitable candidate as opposed to just restricting within our US? So we have expanded it globally and we're trying to find some of the best talent, and we manage the team members as well. So they're in-house. We have a back-end platform where a customer would jump onto the platform and request, hey, I need to do some research for this particular topic. It's a 5-hour project. And they would go and put in that request. And then within an hour, they would have an assistant working on that, or at least assigned to them to be able to work on it. And so on the back end, that's what we do for short term projects, short term little gigs. And they are paired up with someone that has that particular expertise. So if you need, hey, I need, some book data entry or book entry, some light bookkeeping work, someone with bookkeeping expertise that knows how to use QuickBooks, let's say, if that's your software that you're using, they would be the ones to jump on and get assigned to your project. If you're looking for something long term, you can jump off of the platform and coordinate with that individual if they're a full time team member. But so that's on a recurring basis. That's something that we manage, and you start or stop as much or as little as you would like. And so start off with purchasing 10 hours a month to 2 full-time members a month, whatever it is. And then depending on the cyclicality of your business or the requirements, you can scale that up or down as they wish. So that's what we offer. And our process, I think, is very, very different, very stringent compared to, what I've seen, the services that I've used and the team members that I have temporarily tried for my own projects. And it's a pretty rigorous process. It's pretty stringent. We do aptitude tests, we do personality assessments. We assess exactly what the customer is wanting and overlay it with what the actual individual is. We try to have perfect of a fit as possible. We interview them quite a bit, and we give it over to the customer for full-time opportunities. And that's, I think, where we really have the strongest fit with what we provide to our customers. And then during the onboarding phase too, we try and start off everybody very small or very, very slowly so that they're not dumping a whole bunch of work onto the assistants. I think it's anytime you're onboarding somebody, it's got to be in a methodical, slow manner. And we, as the owners of that responsibility or the owner of that work, we need to do it in a way where there are SOPs there. It is done slowly. Whoever we're teaching can actually comprehend and run with it. And so that's something that we kind of hold our customers through so that it's as good of a transition process as we can make it.
It's interesting you shielded yourself because of the from some of the potentials risks in that industry because you do platforms and you do such detailed training and stuff. If you'd have asked me last week, and I'm all into the AI space, I love reading about it. I love toying with the different tools. If you
Mhm,
asked me last week if AI could replace, VAs, I would have told you absolutely no way. It's still a manual process and stuff.
mhm,
This week, I just found one that's doing the sales research. So if you had a VA doing sales research, I found one that's backed by Y Combinator that's could easily replace an average sales assistant. Somebody that does the research, digs up, adds detail to your CRM tools, does a lot of the
mhm,
background work, sends out cold email even, does the lead nurturing, writes some of the copy, like, it does a lot of the stuff, and it's backed by Y Combinator, and it looks amazing. So,
mhm,
but you're still shielded from that. I was gonna, in the fact that anybody developing something like that are gonna stick with the general fields. Like, this is sales coordinator type of role that their first one,
mhm,
and they have 2 more they're working on that'll be a marketing coordinator, and then the other one is a customer assistance type of full-blown agents where the agent does the work. So, I always concerned, like, I was buying, some blogs and newsletters and stuff, but I'm really concerned how fast the AI can take over that, not in the fact that
mhm.
AI's gonna generate content and put it on blogs. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about search engines like Google and Bing, stuff like that, answering all the questions with their AI tools that I would
Mm,
have normally, like, wrote about and had in my articles on my sites and my newsletters. They go into search Bing for how to do something, and the instructions are right there. Like, they don't
mm,
have to click on a link to a website to go see it. AI
yeah.
answered it. So, it's changing the game a little bit. So, looking at the different I think you said it had 8 different platforms right now. Are you growing any of them through acquisition? Like, you buying companies that augment the ones you currently have, or is it you just look out there and see what's a great deal and you're going continuing to broaden your spectrum as opposed to growing the individual ones through acquisition?
I am a little bit of both.
Mhm,
So in one of the industries, I had bought a total of 5, and that was purely growing through acquisition and, of course, organic growth as well, but then through acquisition. And that's what I would like to have. I really would like to have at least about 4 or 5 strong platform entities. And for me, a platform, I'm pretty small. It's just one man show.
mhm.
Never raised any capital. It's just my own capital. And so, you know, platform for my size is probably a small acquisition for others, but I would like to have that sort of size, about 4 or 5 different industries where I do have a
Mhm.
decent little base and kind of diversify the portfolio a little bit. And then if I happen to come across one-offs that are super attractive just because they're interesting to me and I can learn from them, then that's what I enjoy doing. I love getting into those opportunities to be able to buy, understand, operate, and just learn from that.
Do you still own the vending route?
I do. Yep.
So, I my son's 13, he wanted a summer job, and here you can get a summer job at 13, but it's kinda rough, the way the rules will play, but they can work for me. It's a lot easier if they work for the family business.
Mm,
So, we did some evaluation of buying, like, a vending routes to buy some other stuff, and we have made a selection. We're starting to make purchase the items. We couldn't find a company doing exactly what we wanna do, so it's one of those, like I keep talking about buying businesses, we're kinda doing a startup here,
mhm,
right? But it's a proven business model. There are other people in other markets doing it. There's nobody in our market doing it, so it's a little safer than your average, like, "Hey, I got an idea, let's go start something up." But I'm solely buying it because him and my wife are gonna do it during the summer and during the like,
mm,
when the school's out and stuff, and then my wife will probably hire an assistant and keep it going if it's fairly profitable, but it's in that food service type of food truck type of business. But we
nice.
came real close to doing the vending routes just because it's nights and weekends we can go fill up the machines and check on them, right? The only thing stopping us is the storage of all the equipment. This is a mobile
Yeah.
studio. Our tiny house is a tiny home we take with us. We don't have like a big garage or anything to work on anything or fix it. So anything we would need to do on a machine, we'd have to have a location for.
Mhm,
If I had to take something off site and work on it, I'd have to have a spot for that. But
yeah.
I like the vending routes because it's not passive by any means, but it's kind of you can maintain it with low hours is the way I see it. And it's kind of industry. I mean, it's economy agnostic. People are going to walk up and use a vending machine if the economy is doing great or the economy is doing bad, so long as it's in high traffic spots. What are you currently looking for? What's the current say criteria? Not just industry, but kind of you said your normal or your cornerstone business or I forgot the exact phrase you used, but might be smaller than others. What's your buyer's box? What are you looking to acquire?
Yeah. As far as my size and criteria,
Mm,
I mean, I've been teetering back and forth on this, but I would say if it's cool and weird, I think those are the requirements. If it's cool, and especially if it's more weird and intriguing and interesting and it piques my interest, I'll go small. I'll go very small, especially if it's digital. I can even go super tiny. But for the most part, if it's a physical business, I'm looking at least 3, 4, 500,000 in free cash flow. And that is not SD or EBITDA. That's true free cash flow after I inherit my expenses. So
mhm,
usually like you run the math and SD is at 500, I'll probably get 250, 300 out of that after I do things my way, after I stop paying people under the table and go to W2 unlike the previous owner. I start using software as opposed to doing things by pen and paper. I mean, all those things, once those are shifted over and
mhm.
factoring in CapEx, whatever it is, hiring a GM. So my true free cash flow, I'm wanting at least a few 100,000. up to probably a million, around that ballpark, a million, million five. If it's a bit bigger, I'll still take a look at it. And depending on the right type of business, I would go in, especially if it's one of my core types of industries that I'm really trying to go after, then absolutely I'll go up to two, even though it's slightly bigger. But once you start getting into that territory, I'm competing with big dogs with a lot bigger money. And I'm just very conservative in my approach. And so I'm not looking to shell out the type of money that some of these people are. And so I try to play in a little area that I know that I can win. And I'm looking exclusively off market. So I don't really touch broker deals. Again, I don't want to play with the crazy money that's out there and all these people throwing around crazy offers, SBA money, all that. So this is my capital. I'll be inheriting this debt, non SBA. And so it's got to be on very conservative terms. So again, like I said, about a few 100,000 free cash flow, upwards of a million plus, and recurring. I can't touch anything project based. It's got to be recurring revenues or long-term contracts in place, at least 10 to 15 years old, ideally closer to 20 or more. Some sort of management has to be in place. If the owner is the business, if the key man risk there is too high. It's just not my cup of tea anymore. I used to do those back in the day, but I can't do that anymore. And there's a few other things, like I love things that have high regulatory involvement or licensing, or perhaps it's mandated. It's a mandated industry for other industries. Those are modes that I love to see. And then personally, from a tax perspective, I love high capex businesses. So, those are ones that I would get attracted to a little bit easier.
I
Just
I got turned on to an industry not too long ago. A buddy of mine works for one. That's what made me look into it, because I asked him what he was getting paid and his commissions, because he's a high-end sales guy. He makes six figures living in Oklahoma. I'm like, "How you working for this company making six figures? You usually make to be comfortable." He's in the six figure, 180 to $250,000 a year, what he needs to live in his house and do what he's doing. And
yeah,
he works for a company that he travels around a lot, but the company's, I think, best based in Texas or Houston. They do fire inspections for buildings. It's mandated to come every building in most cities have to have their sprinkler systems and fire systems inspected every so often. The person that's doing it has to have a minor certificate, right?
yeah,
And they actually sell some of the repair and stuff. So their primary business is the inspection, but they can do minor stuff, like they can replace. So, for instance, if they're a particular type of building, I guess the little wax melting things that are in the
yeah,
sprinklers had to be meltable at a certain temperature. Well, some of those codes
mm,
changed over the years. So these guys can go turn the water off on that and switch the head out there. They're not
mm,
total plumbers, but they can do certain minor stuff. So they can do some of the work, and they make a killing, because almost every time you go there, you find stuff that the codes and regs
right,
change. You walk into a building that's 100 years old, and their
right,
sprinkler systems, you test it out and it's got rust in the lines and stuff. Well, it's got to be purged. There's maintenance that has to be done, and they do the maintenance. And I never
mhm,
thought about that. I own a little pest control company, and it's highly regulated. But there's a moat to that. There's a moat to, like, you're the guy in town that knows how to inspect that and do it right and keep people to doing it, and they have to do it, especially anything that's of public services,
absolutely,
hospitals,
yep,
dental offices. Hell, I'm in California, food trucks and all those have fire suppression systems that have to have in it. So if you have a grease fire or anything that cooks over a certain temperature, you have to have a full-blown fire suppression system built into your trailer. So that would be one. What are some of the other, like, industries that you think that would be, like, to have that type of moat?
I've got a spreadsheet of over 100,
Yeah?
probably maybe 10, 15 industries that I'm looking at, and yeah, over 100 individual unique types of businesses. But I've looked at anything from heavy machinery rentals in the construction world and heavy duty equipment, talking down to the dumpster level to porta potties. From the service standpoint, there's so many different types of repairing types of companies, from appliances in the hospitality sector all the way to commercial or to residential as well, but also commercial. And then you kind of get into the traditional, the hottest stuff right now, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, but in different verticals. So, for example, the hospitality sector, not touching residential whatsoever. I mean, just different things that I find attractive. And looking at elevator repair companies, looking at really for me, it's the weird stuff. So if it's dirty, other people don't want to do it. Like for example, septic, anything related to septic. I mean, they've got a lot of equipment out there as well, but it's just the dirtiness nature of it that many people don't want to touch. And so that's attractive. Looked at fire and safety. That is a pretty hot field as well. Looked at pest control. Again, those are all hot fields that
Very
PE
competitive,
is
yeah.
all over, and
Yeah.
it's a tough market to fight in, but it's just I think getting for me, it's all about finding the off market opportunities, and sometimes that may mean that you got to go much smaller for companies that have not been, you know, wooed by the larger players. But so I'm looking at a different approach of okay, if I have to go that small as like a few hundred thousand in cash flow, could I make a dent in growth, expansion, growing through M&A? Would that make sense? And so that's kind of what I'm evaluating for each opportunity.
I interviewed a guy who he bought, grew, then sold a company that kinda in that septic space, but it was for commercial properties only,
Mhm.
and it had a niche business inside of it that would because it uses the same pump trucks and stuff, but it was, empty grease traps for restaurants, and then he
Mhm.
built a thing where he would clean the grease hoods and the grease vents because those people need that
Yeah.
that's mandatory, they have to do that every so often.
Yeah.
So he would take the and he had a truck that could pressure wash all that stuff and then capture the grease and, in the grease trap. The truck had a grease traps built in it, so it wouldn't release any grease back into the ground or whatever. And, but he like, I think the number was something like 7, $8 million a year that he grew that
Mhm.
to, or he sold it.
Wow.
A lot of these
Wow.
companies make a lot of money. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of these businesses that are a lot more cash flow positive and have bigger margins than you would think they would. You look at some
Mhm.
manufacturing companies, they're doing good to have 6, 7% margins. That's crazy insane for them. That's good. But some of these little service companies like you're talking about, these septic clean out and these other stuff, they can have considerable profit margins that, when you build something, it's yours to figure out, grow, expand, figure out product market fit and all that. When you buy something, it's yours to screw up. So
Right.
I need some room to learn some lessons. But I like those industries too. I think it's really cool. And I love your ideas. If it's weird or unique, that's a unique moat in itself. There's something to being your unique selling proposition to just being something that you do that just kind of different from everybody else. I looked and they wouldn't sell because they were leaving it to they only called me off of one of my ads because they wanted to learn how to sell it to their son. Like they needed to know how to do the transfer, and I helped them because I'm overly generous in that, and I walked them through what type of attorney they needed and how to set it up. But
Mhm.
it was a foundation company. Sounds non-generic, right? But no, they do foundation repairs for major bridges and, like, they're like a top engineering firm. They get flown around the world. If the bridge look like it's sinking, they can lift bridges and restructure bridges and, like, major structures.
Oh,
And
wow.
they have an office in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they're mostly out of Dallas. And it's like 6 engineers, and then they bring on expertise as they need. But if somebody says, "Hey, this bridge is sinking and we don't wanna tear it down and rebuild it," these guys can go in and say, "Hey, can it be saved?" And it's like, man, I wanted my hands on that because that's something that, like, they're known that they're the only ones that can do it. But it'd be
Yeah.
hard because the engineer is the father. The son's been working there for 10, 15 years now, so he's got a rep too. So that's one of
Mhm.
those is the owner so tied into it that when they leave, it's gonna be a big problem, right?
Mhm.
So, what are some of the unique ones that when you say unique or weird, like, have you seen any I don't wanna disclose anything you're still working on. Are there any ones like, "Man, you wish you'd have got," or anything cool? Any stories of, "Man, I came this close to getting X, Y, and Z?"
I mean, yeah, I guess a couple that had gotten away, the ones that these are from years and years ago that I wish I had gotten, a couple of job boards. So
Mhm.
one with developers, that's one I'm still in contact with even till today. About 5 years ago is when we started that relationship and still keep in touch. But I would love to have that business. It's a very aged, tenured company in the job board space, which I know has become more of a commodity. It's just almost anyone can start one up, very low barrier to entry, but it's still a very attractive business to me. And the age, the tenure, and just its place in the industry, as well as niche job boards. So I've looked at job boards in very, very particular niches, which I think is
Was
super fascinating.
was it Free Up by chance? I interviewed Nathan
Um,
yesterday,
mhm.
who stole in 2019, he sold Free Up, which is a job board for part-time gigs and, like,
Okay.
outsourced gigs and stuff like that. He built they built that thing up to, I wanna say, I think it was, like, $12 million a year revenue,
Oh,
and then
wow.
sold it.
This was super niche in the medical space. One of them,
Okay.
one little vertical. Another one was in Hollywood and very select niche. And so that was super attractive.
I tried to convince there's one in that job board space. I tried to convince a young lady who had a traveling nurses
And
placement company. It was
those
more
are
of a
not
placement. She had a little bit of a job board she could have done better for her website, but she had a really profitable business. They had, I think, 5 staff plus her, so 6 people doing 3 million on her tax return.
mm,
Not bad for, and they're operating in, like, 6 states, virtually because they
yeah,
just do everything through Zoom. So, basically, they find traveling nurses and coordinate contracts with hospitals and send nurses around, and they have quite a few, more
right.
than 100 nurses that travel around. So, I don't wanna give
Mm.
too much detail because people listen to enough shows, they might be able to figure out who she is. So, what does it look like, your day-to-day operations? I did hear a key piece of information when you're talking about these. You look for general managers and stuff. I don't wanna buy anything I have to run 20, 40, 60, 80 hours a week. It sounds like you make sure that you can put a GM or a daily operator in there. Are any of these that you're the main operator, or are you pretty much like that? You have a primary operator and you kinda play the chairman of the board role?
Exactly. Yeah. Each company has someone that runs it. And then I am basically the back office staff. So I'm the administrative staff. I'm the part-time M&A, as well as the back office HR and the back office part-time CEO. So I run everything on the back office side for the companies. And I'm the one that oversees the KPIs, the financials, the management on a monthly basis for each one of the companies. And then I work on the new opportunities within M&A, negotiating new deals, working on the next company, and anything in administratives, even the menial tasks I do just at a back office level, like from the holding company perspective. And so my day to day it really varies. For example, last year I was out of state, out of country for about 6 months out of the year, probably averaged 2, 3 hours a week in terms of work and really didn't do a whole lot. And so I traveled personal, just whatever it is that I wanted
You go
around
anywhere
the world.
cool?
Antarctica,
Oh, wow.
Kilimanjaro, Europe, Southeast Asia, Asia, India, 6 continents. I mean, last year I didn't do too much with that. This year I'm more back in the saddle, really enjoying being more immersed in my companies and really trying to spend time on building the relationships for off-market opportunities to buy the next company. And so it's really that's really consuming most of my time is just the relationships. And I'm not a short-term guy, so I'm building the relationships that may not pan out for years. And
Mhm.
I know that after doing this for a couple of years, I will have a pipeline in 2, 3, 4, 5 years that even if I had $100 million, I don't think I could even fulfill. And so that's really where I would want to get to is just to build up such an
Mhm.
immense pipeline of off-market opportunities of companies and owners that I know intimately, or at least well enough to say, yes, I'm going to go with this. And then to be able to sift through to purchase the highest quality opportunities. And like I said, I think even right now, it's a bit overwhelming, the opportunities that there are out there. And so even if I had a small little fund that I created, I want the opportunities to be so overwhelming that I get the pickings of the absolute highest tier of quality.
It's brilliant. It's the key to this. A lot of people wonder, like, what's the key to getting a deal done? I was like, deal flow. Look at you need enough deals coming on your plate where you're looking at 10, 20, 100 of them in a given period of time, 6 months or so. And in that, you'll find things that you just kind of have to buy, right? They're deals. They're really deals. as opposed to like one of my mentors always tells me, look for reasons not to buy. If you got enough deal flow, you're looking for red flags, you're looking for reasons not to buy, and you can weed things out pretty quickly. Like, okay, this one just isn't going to fit. And you won't fall in love with businesses. If you've only got one or two businesses a month to look at, you're going to fall in love with something that's, a dog
Right.
with fleas. But it's a nice dog and it likes me, like the
Right.
owner likes me. Like,
Right.
it's interesting that a lot of people do that, right? That said, the only way to get over it is to have deal flow, to do what you're doing, to play the long game. Have people coming to you and explaining it and then working with it, and everybody gets value. If you do it right, everybody gets value for having the conversation. You call me to sell your business, you're gonna get value out of it. I may not buy it, but you're gonna be better for being at the end of the call because you're gonna know what you need to do to make it sellable to me or another acquisition entrepreneur. Because I'm just
Mhm.
gonna be honest with you. And there's value in that. So long as you're adding value to people's life and going through that and building rapport and relationships, I do my best not to make people mad all the time, just to make sure that we're adding value to the conversation. I don't wanna waste my time. I don't wanna spend
Right.
3 hours on a phone call, 3 different phone calls with somebody I know I'm not gonna buy. But I
Mhm.
can there's never been a time where I've told somebody no and I didn't give them a 1 to 2 page, Here's why and here's what you need to do to make it better for the next guy." I
Mhm.
always give them that, and I say, "If you fix these things, call me." I did that
Yeah.
recently with a wonderful little company, but they made so many changes, their revenue was declining, and they're
Mhm.
in a market where the competition there's no barrier to entry, there's no real moat, so there's a bunch of new competitors that weren't there before, so now they're in this weird, like they don't call it a death spiral, they don't think it is because they made changes to improve upon it, but they haven't ridden out the curve where the 35 employees are used to those changes and performing at how they used to perform, let alone performing better because they've got new training and new standard operating procedures. So, what's the biggest red flag for you? Like, you've done enough deals right now. People need to know, like, if you see some X at a company, you're like, okay, I'm just done. Gonna be nice to the guy and get off the phone. What is the biggest red flag for you?
I mean, there's so many, right, when we go through diligence, but and there's so many that have bit me in the butt in different ways. One of the biggest ones that I look out for right now is the seller themselves. And if there's a broker, I mean, get them out of the way. I don't even want to talk to them, but like if it's I want to sit across the table directly from you as the seller, hear it straight from your mouth. And if your story does not align, I forget you forget. I understand that you can forget stuff. You don't know every little aspect about your business that happens. But if I don't see a level of sincerity, you being genuine, you not having a consistency to your story or however you present your business and yourself, that is probably the biggest red flag that I have seen from previous sellers that just they're really good salesmen. They sounded good, they looked good, they wooed me in their pitch. The broker wooed me in their pitch and selling the company. And so that's like everything fully encompassing the person that I am buying from, I think says a whole lot. And so I want to dissect them. I want to vet them. I want to do a background check, do reference checks on them externally, but also internally with their employees. I want to understand exactly, I want to put them through the ringer and just really make sure that I'm not getting told a bunch of BS. And for me, I just want it real. So if there are a whole bunch of red flags, tell me up front. If you're going to hide stuff and I find out, you've already lost my respect, my trust. I mean, I'm probably walking at that point. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of my biggest lessons learned is really how I interact and deal and diligence the seller and everything encompassing that individual is so critical.
It's interesting. I have the same gut feeling. Like I told you, I had a marketing firm at one point, and I sold it to one of my clients. I had red flags about that. He was a pain in the butt as a client, right?
Mhm.
And he'd offered multiple times, like in our coaching. I had a marketing coaching business at least for about 6 weeks straight. At the last 5 minutes of our coaching sessions were, "Hey, you should come upstairs," and he just kept increasing the offer until one day it just made sense. I was like, it'd be stupid not to. I had a baby on the way, and he's offering a big check. "I'll give you a big check today, and give you a percentage of ownership of every deal we do," and it sounded really great, so I went with it, but, it lasted a couple years before I had to leave because it just didn't work. The red flags were there. So I think trust in your gut. You've developed a gut instinct now,
Yeah.
and when you said, "I need to sit across from that seller," I've had to tell more than one broker, "Look, I'm not looking for the damn answer, I'm looking for the way the owner answers it."
Exactly.
right? I'm
That's
looking for their
huge. Yep.
mannerisms and the tone in their voice and the sense of excitement or non-excitement. Or do they seem drained or not? Is there integrity in what they're
Absolutely.
telling me? Are they and ahhing about the conversations? I'm not giving you the because a lot of people just ask me the question. The broker wants to play the in between. Like that won't work. If I can't
Mhm.
build rapport with the seller, I'm not interested in the deal. It's different at this level. When you start getting at the mid-market level and you're in a bidding war against other people and they're not using a broker, they're using private equity banks,
Mhm.
and they got 50 offers on the table. Now it's a different game.
Right.
So it's a different game if they've got more than 2 or 3 partners, right? My rule of thumb, if it's husband and wife or business partner and an individual, that's fine. 3rd man's in, I'm out. And the reason
Mhm.
for multiple reasons, right? Once the 3rd person's introduced, it's harder to negotiate. Once a 3rd person's introduced, it's also more about the numbers than it is about anything else, right?
Mhm.
Somebody on there is wanting to hold out for the highest number instead of the best
Yep.
buyer,
Mhm.
and I'm not interested, and I'm sure you're not. I'm not interested in being the highest number on the market. I'm
Right.
interested in getting a fair deal that the business can thrive and survive on after I can get the money back within a
Right.
certain period of time. Any industries you just like, "I just won't touch this industry?" Is there anything out there like, it's a red flag for you, like it's too vulnerable, it's too at risk with what's going on in the environment, economy or anything?
Anything B2C I don't touch. I don't wanna deal
Mhm,
with end consumers, so I'm 100% B2B. I won't touch anything otherwise. And declining industries, those I mean, there's some that I've been a part of that I just you can still make money, you can still increase your margins and still do well, but going forward, I won't touch a declining industry. So I wanna be on something that's on the up and coming and kinda ride that wave just because like you were saying, I don't think I'm gonna be the best operator. I know I'm not compared to the
mhm.
guys that I'm purchasing from. So I want a little bit of buffer in there so that I may screw up. And so either industry buffer or like you were saying about profit margin, that buffer's gotta be there. So nothing specific that I won't touch, but yeah, I personally don't touch anything B2C or anything on with a declining trend industry wise.
I get that. I interviewed a guy who buys declining businesses, but he does it in a very unique way. He pretty much is only paying 1x, right?
Mhm.
And he says, "I get my money back in the first year," and then I was like, "I don't buy anything where it doesn't have, at least a 3 to 5 years cycle left." So I get
Mhm.
my money back the first year. I basically shut it down to maintenance mode only because I know it's in declining. So there's no new development. I'm not trying to beat the market. I know it's going away. I maintain the current thing. So he minimizes everything and just, gets his cash back within he tries it. He buys it as if you'll buy it at its current operating and he gets the money back in a year.
Mhm.
He shortens the shot. He does all kinds of stuff. He goes, "I have my money's back usually in 6 months, and
Mhm.
the next 3 to 4 years is nothing but a cash cow for me," knowing
Yeah.
it's gonna dwindle off, right? So there's a play for all these different things, but I like that you look at the industry and go, "Is it inclining, declining? Can I" You're much younger than I am. You've got some longevity in front of you, where if I look at the future roadmap, I say, "Can my kids take over this?" I'm
Mhm.
52. Hopefully I'll
Yeah.
make 100, so that's 48 more years, but, chances are I won't wanna do anything after probably 75, so now I've got, 23 years. I'm looking for a runway, and, be honest, nobody knows with AI and everything else going on, nobody knows what's gonna happen within 5 years, let alone 20 years. What's the what's, like, the biggest mistake you've ever made? That's a good one. We'll wrap it up with we'll do what's the biggest mistake you've ever done in business so that
Mhm.
other people can avoid that, and then we'll do it through quick takeaways.
I think, and this goes across the board, if I was to generalize some of those lessons learned, it is just over trusting people. I think I'm very trusting in general. And if I bet you and I bring you on my team or I want to do business with you, I'm believing that you're good. We're going to be in it together. And I think over trusting sellers that I've done business with, brokers, employees, to people that I'm investing in. So, for example, I've made an angel investment without even seeing the documents just because I had a good gut feel or so I thought. And once I wired that money, never saw documents, never saw anything after for a year. Trusting employees. So I trust that I'm putting my business in your hands to operate. Maybe I, and that was a mistake on in multiple times. Maybe I didn't properly give them the adequate resources, the right training. Maybe it was too much for them to handle, or they were just the wrong people. And so just kind of over trusting that they were capable of doing it, even when they kept telling me that they were, I knew that things weren't actually happening and they shouldn't be in that position multiple times over. And then sellers, I think believing, like I was saying earlier, just believing everything that they're saying and not truly drilling into some of the little doubts, some of the little red flags that I was seeing. And so I think that going back to what I was saying about the sellers and really checking them and vetting them out, I think that can just be taken over in a general sense, just people in general. One of the best, someone told me, he's got a pretty massive company now. He told me this is a people business and he was referring to his company, but I think about that all the time because I think we are in a people business. And from the people that we invest in, people we borrow from, people we buy from, people we set out to hire. I mean, this is truly a people business. And so just dealing with people, I think, has been my biggest lesson learned, my biggest area of growth, my biggest weakness, everything. And so, yeah, it really, I guess, mistake would be trusting or over trusting people without vetting and verifying and keeping tabs continuously because I just kind of let go and I just kind of walk away and don't micromanage, don't do any of that. But I think as I've become a better leader, just being able to manage people in whatever sense that may be and just working with people, dealing with people, I think is still my biggest area of improvement.
I get it. There's a reoccurring theme in all these small businesses too that I've seen. Most of these business owners, if they've got more than 30 or 40 employees, they have one or two that they know is the
Mhm.
wrong button, wrong seat, and they haven't
Mhm.
done anything about it because of loyalty or, "Oh, that's my his father worked for my father for 30 years, and I promised to take care of him." And it's the wrong button, the right seat, on the wrong seat, right? It's maybe he's a great employee, but he's not a great employee in the role you have him in. I believe that everybody's a great employee somewhere. Some of these guys should probably be not working for me and better employee flipping burgers somewhere, but they're a good employee for somebody. Right?
Mhm.
So the wrong button, the wrong seat is a common thread, and, being able to realize that now you've had that self-realization that you allow this to happen will keep you from doing that in the future. I think it's a brilliant lesson for everybody listening is take a look at everybody you've got working for you, and is that the right person in the right role and responsibility? Are they gonna
Mhm.
thrive? Not only just perform, are they gonna thrive in that environment? And if
Right.
not, what environment would they sometimes it's not getting rid of them, sometimes it's just shifting people around. Maybe there's
Mhm.
an environment that they would love to do and would thrive in because it intrigues them and they're curious and they're
Mhm.
passionate about learning or whatever. I had a guy that worked for me for years when I was an a W-2 employee. I ran big divisions of companies, and I learned it really fast. He was fast to learn, but he enjoyed that process. So I moved him around from department to department because he got things done. He would go in there and take all the broken stuff in the department and fix it and learn different things and do standard operating procedures so that people knew what he would do. Then he would get bored and start not showing up and stuff. And I was like, "Hey, you got to come over here and work at this other department for me." And
Yeah.
it takes something to recognize you got certain people that are just thrive in certain environments and then put them in that environment.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here today. Is
Yeah.
there any final, like, first of all, like, you got any key takeaways you want people to know? And then, secondly, like, what do you want people, if people have a business to sell or they want to work with you or want to
Mhm.
reach out and talk to you for some reason, how would you recommend they reach out to you?
Yeah. I would say like key takeaway. I mean, if there's, I get this, ask this all the time as far as how do I get in the game? How do I start? How do I do what you're doing? I mean, for me, I think there's so many resources out there online. You can
Mhm.
choose something. You don't got to pay a penny for anything. There's so many free courses, so many free avenues, podcasts, and just different forums to be able to help. But for me, I always suggest just get out there and start doing it. It's absolutely free to even get onto Biz Buy Sell, fake it, and just window shop deals and just
Mhm.
start speaking the lingo, even if you don't know it. You'll slowly start learning the language and just getting out there, talking to sellers. But I think it's just getting out there and starting to pick up the phone and doing it. I think we overcomplicate this process. It's not very difficult. It's just you need the reps. And that's where I think the biggest thing for the buck is in terms of learning and growth. And that's, I didn't know a single thing before starting. So I learned it through a lot of poor deals, a lot of mistakes. So I would say just start getting in the arena, just start doing some work, just start doing something. And there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of people that are willing to help. And so you can reach me directly at Twitter. And that's probably where I'm the most active. Ujwal Velagapudi, and that's my handle at Ujwal Velagapudi, or my website, ujwalvelagapudi.com. And that's probably the easiest way to be able to reach out and connect with me.
And we'll put those in the show notes so people can find those and,
Yep.
you know, and spell it. You got a
Yep.
really unique
Absolutely.
name. People tell me all the time, I tried to go to your website, but I couldn't spell your name. I was like, "Well, because you spelled it
Yeah.
skeleton, not skeleton. It only has one E."
Right.
So that's a very simple name, but, for years, I'll make sure it's in the show notes. If you're listening, check the show notes. I'll have direct links for you to find him there. And I wanna thank you today and for being here. So we'll call that a show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Hang out for just a second. I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.